I'm Tigin Kiza and welcome to Career Connect, where we are speaking to graduates and experts of industry to help you prepare for your best position as a professional. Today we're expanding more about branding, the importance of having a brand, what is a brand, and how do you go about building a lasting brand to help you in the corporate space. And I'm joined by two phenomenal women who are going to share some of their insights about branding. Hi ladies, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Great, thank you so much for joining me. Please introduce yourselves and tell me a little bit more about what you do and what your company does as well.
So my name is Tseho. I am in public relations and I also study at the University of Johannesburg.
Okay, and you're studying PR, right?
I am.
Okay.
My name is Tesneem. I'm the head of communications for a company called Bayer. So what that entails is obviously corporate branding, but it also entails a lot of media relations, public relations, employee engagement, etc., etc. But yes, of course, branding plays a crucial role in what I do. And Bayer is a global brand, so I manage very much from a local level.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, starting off particularly on those things, you're both in PR, but from two very different aspects of PR. Is what you learn in the textbook what happens in the industry?
So I think it really gives a good basis, and just depending on what you do. So I also come from a university background, so I have an undergraduate in communications, but I specialized in marketing as well as journalism. So I think it's given me a good basis to come into the corporate space and kind of work within all the sectors that are involved within a corporate communications environment. Because marketing obviously goes down that road of branding, which I think is obviously very, very important. I also did my honors in journalism, so I think that's given me a good basis from a PR media relations point of view. So all in all, I do believe, coming from a university degree background, that it gives you a really, really good basis. But yes, I think as in any other profession, what you learn in textbook is not necessarily what you do in the work environment. Also, I think the industry has changed dramatically. So
there are differences, but it does help for a really good base. Right, so from your perspective, as a student, what's important to you about building your brand while you're studying?
I think what's important about that is that when you build your brand while you're studying, the moment you're done studying, you know exactly where you want to go. So if you don't have a brand that you want to project outside of your studies, I feel like I won't know where exactly I want to lead my career post my graduating and so forth. So that's why I'm trying to just build a proper brand while I'm still trying to build a decent foundation, so that when I get into the workplace, I know exactly where I'm headed. I have a cleared out, mapped direction way, something like
for where you want to go.
Yeah.
So we all know brands. We know big brands. We know our favorite brands. We know our luxury brands. What does it mean for a person to be a brand? What does that mean specifically? Brand you or brand me?
Yeah, look, I think specifically from a corporate point of view, it's very much about maintaining a very professional veneer, if you will. So I think in today's day and age of social media, and especially the importance that it has in a student's life, for example, I think that someone like Seho would need to look ahead and be mindful of the kind of profile she's building up, for example, in a social media space. Because that kind of stuff never goes away. Yeah. So if you are looking to build a personal brand, be mindful of what you're placing online. It will come, if there's something that you're not completely proud of, it might show up. Prospective employees do these days look in on your online profiles, etc. So I think it's very, very important to be mindful always of what you're posting online, even if it is in a personal capacity.
Sure, and if you do have a private profile, where it's your stuff, but it's not locked off from everybody else to see, where does one draw the line in terms of what can and cannot ruin your career? So if somebody is a joyful drinker on the weekends, and they post pictures of that, does that really directly impact how their employer sees them?
Yeah, look, I think there's also a differentiation between the different platforms.
Sure.
So, for example, on Facebook or Instagram, for example, it's more of a personal platform and it's about your social life, etc. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have fun with it, but I think really kind of in your mind set a boundary for yourself. It's not going to determine your success or failure in the world, in the corporate world, but it can have an impact. But if you're looking, for example, at your LinkedIn profile, which I think is becoming increasingly important in the career space, then that's something that I would keep as quite sacred, you know, and really, really stick to kind of either what you're doing in your industry or within your corporate environment, or just with regards to what it is, what is it that I want to project out to prospective either employees or partners or organizations that I want to work with. It's not always, you know, about work. It's about reaching out. It's about making connections. So that platform for me would be quite important in terms of your career branding.
Sure, definitely. And what you put out there does make a huge difference. What are corporates looking for? You know, when you go into the hiring process, outside of my qualifications and the good, pretty stuff on my CV, when I walk through the door, what are you looking at as a corporate?
Yeah, look, of course, your qualifications form the basis. But, I mean, a lot of it is, remember, we still sit on a one-on-one basis and we still do interviews, for example. So I think on one level, it's very much about the way I would connect with Tseho, for example. But I think a student or a prospective employee's ability to project what they're capable of, their knowledge of the industry, their knowledge of the actual role that they're being interviewed for are extremely important. But I also think the level of professionalism that you do project to your prospective employee is important. So, for example, the way you're dressed. In the corporate environment, I think it counts because it's a first impression, and remember, you only get 2 or 3 chances before you actually secure a job. So all of those factors together, I think, play quite a big package role in what you present to a prospective employee.
Okay, fantastic. So we're going to pause right there for now. When we come back, I really want to go into more about, you know, how do you go about building your brand, important elements of your brand, and if you have done something, how do you bounce back from, you know, that negative image people failure, that negative image people may have of you. So we'll chat a bit more about that after the break.
Okay.
Thanks.
For more great content, stay tuned here on Career Connect. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Sigim Kiza, and this is Career Connect. We're catching up with some graduates to ask them what they think about making it in the world. And right now I'm catching up with Gugu, asking her about Brand Me. Gugu, tell me, why is branding important to you?
Well, in the industry that I'm in, I studied radio. It's very important to brand yourself. It's very important to know that people know that you're different from someone else. I mean, there's a lot of Gugus out here, but it's very important for people to know that I am Gugu whoever, the Gugu who works with music, or Gugu who's a presenter, or Gugu who's a content producer. So knowing what you're doing and knowing what you're putting out and knowing who you are trying to attract is very important, and that's why branding is very important.
Fantastic. And how do you highlight key things about yourself in your brand? You know, how do you put that across to whoever's meeting you for the first time?
Oh my goodness, I just talk a lot about what interests me, which is what I do. I speak a lot about music, I speak a lot about specific kinds of music, and that is mostly, well, the people that I attract and the people that I talk to.
And when do you think graduates should start working on their brands?
I think that immediately when you know what exactly you want to do, you should start working on your brand, because that will at least build you up and get you in the know and know a little bit about the industry as well, and so that people in the industry can also know you.
Fantastic. So I hope to hear your Gugu name in the radio industry as the years come.
Definitely you will.
Fantastic. Join the conversation online, #CareerConnect at Student Village and #BDTV. We want to know what you think about branding. See you there. Hello and welcome back to Career Connect with me and Sigim Kiza. We're continuing our conversation speaking about brand you. So we're talking about people having their brands and the importance of having your brand as a student and then as a young professional. You know, what are some of the key things that you need to do to build a brand that's suitable for your prospective employer?
So one of the things that some people do that are really serious about building their brand is to actually start a website of their own.
Okay.
Now, it doesn't need to be too comprehensive. It can be a page or two or three, but what it does is it makes you searchable online. So you've got some sort of a profile that you're in control of. The other thing to do if you looking to then build on that is to start becoming an expert in your industry. So start securing speaking engagements, for example, and really establishing yourself in that particular industry. It may start small. You may not get the forums that you'd like to at first, but I think as you go along, and of course if you have something good to say, you will start to build that kind of profile up. But I think in saying all of these things, it's very important to stay true to yourself. So I think authenticity is extremely important, because I do think that comes through, and it's quite difficult to maintain a facade if you're not particularly either qualified or qualified enough to be speaking on a particular subject.
Yeah.
So I think all those things combined, you can really, those are a good start to building a brand, because then you also start establishing yourself. So for example, if someone Googles you, and you should actually Google yourself and see what's coming through, because that's the impression that people get when they do Google you, and that's how you start to build that kind of brand.
I like the point of becoming an expert in your industry. How do I go about deciding what I should have my niche as, and where do I find speaking engagements?
I think it's about passion. So if you, like, for example, I'm passionate about what I do in the corporate communication space. And so, for example, if I really wanted to build my brand within the space, it's about, so for example, going to the industry body, joining it. And there's a lot of conferences, for example, that they organize. And that's maybe a good start through your industry body to kind of establish a presence, make yourself known, meet the correct people within the industry, and then really start in a very slow way in going through industry-wise. Of course, I mean, in today's age again of social media, you can try and go at it alone. So I think there are various ways of doing it, and it really depends on the industry that you're in. If you're in the creative industry, you could go about it in a very different way.
Yeah, definitely. So for somebody who's not keen on going all out there to create their own website, and maybe they don't really want to speak in front of audiences, how do I go about communicating who my brand is to my prospective employees and even to my peers within the same industry?
I think confidence is key. So you have to be willing to go out there. Of course, it's about securing interview opportunities, etc., in order to be able to get there. And then it's about really showing or illustrating what you can do within your prospective industry. So for example, in my industry, it's about a portfolio of, for example, publicity that I've done, or articles that I've written, or brands that I've managed, or industry bodies I've been with. So just depending on what you're in, it's about then actually being able to demonstrate what you've done in the past. If you're starting out, for example, I think, go out there and look at graduate programs that could be important in directing the rest of your career, for example. And there are some great graduate programs out there. I think those are important because it really does set the tone for the rest of your career, because it either puts you in a particular industry or environment that kind of shapes the rest of your career, or it doesn't. So I think really thinking about where it is you want to be in 5 or 10 years is important.
Sure. And how important is it to have sort of a PR agent, a mentor, a coach, somebody to help you in defining what your brand is and how you go about shaping your brand and communicating it to the world?
I think it's quite important. Even if you've been in an environment for many, many years, you'll still find that there are still issues within the business environment that you're learning on a daily basis. And especially if you are not staying within the same industry, for example. I find that now, for example, at my level, that having a mentor, obviously on that level, is extremely important, because I think not only does it teach you about the business environment that you work in and how to achieve your business goals, but I think it's on a personal level how it is you deal with people in the organization, either on the same level or different levels. I think those kinds of learnings from a mentor that's looking out for your interests can only be a benefit. So I think particularly graduates, it can be extremely, extremely valuable in directing your career.
Definitely. So as a student, you've studied from undergraduate and now you're doing your master's. How has your brand changed? And what are some of the key things that you have thought about as you've grown throughout your studies?
So I think when I started out, I studied what I studied because it was more of a, well, it looks glamorous.
Yeah.
Because you for instance, you watch movies and you're like, oh my word, public relations people, they've got such a glamorous life. And then you start interning, you start doing graduate programs and you realize it's not as glamorous and you learn a lot. So you realize that, okay, maybe I don't know so much. And that's when you start knocking on doors, like that's when you'll start asking, other professionals as to like, what else can I do to be better at this and so forth. So I think I'm learning to be much better at what I do, and just making sure that I have got all my ducks in a row. But I don't know. I would like to get to her level at some point.
It happens eventually,
Yeah.
I think one key thing is, I would assume your class sizes get much smaller the more specialized your qualification becomes. How do you make sure you're seen as a student in the eyes of your professors?
So the thing, well, professors will always see you as a student.
Yeah.
When you walk into class, you are there to learn what you're there to learn, and then they don't care. Like when you're doing your undergrad, there's some people who actually drop out of school and come back, and you might find that, oh, this person came back and the lecturer is just like, I'm just here to teach all of you this, and you will all be treated the same way. So you find that on campus you're another student. They don't care what level of qualification you're studying. You're there to learn, and they'll do what they need to do to assist you. And they also give us access to these programs that will help you, that'll help elevate your career.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, I really want to know, how does one rebrand themselves? So if you were known as this one kind of person in high school and now you're in varsity and you want to have a new image, or if people you worked with and you were colleagues with in varsity knew you as one kind of way, there's jokes about people at the F7 benches and all of that, and now you've really changed your life and you're different. And even if there's something that happened in your life, perhaps it was put out on social media that you aren't able to take back, how do you rebrand yourself and reintroduce yourself to your peers as well as people who are wanting to employ you?
I think from my point of view, it's about then establishing a track record that can kind of speak for yourself, because I think that definitely then would help you to help people see you in a different light, if you will. Because if you've got a track record that you can speak of and that's actually visible to the outside world, I think it just helps you to project this new image to people. And yes, you may have something that you're embarrassed of in your past, but this new persona can then kind of overtake that. So it's really about establishing that experience and that track record that can really speak to the people that you want to speak to.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just from varsity to high school, you realize that it's two different worlds, but also you just try to show that there's a certain level of growth, and you work harder at highlighting the aspects of your brands that you want people to see. So if you want people to see you as a more serious student, then you work at being an even better student. If you want people to see you as a hardworking student, then you work harder. So for me, it's just working on what you want people to see, and not necessarily hiding the negatives, but also showing that you're trying to improve the negative part of what they know about you.
Okay, and quick question. How long should building your brand take?
I think it's an ongoing process and something that you've got to be managing almost on a daily basis. So I think it never ever goes away.
It's a constant happening.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate you coming here to speak with us and sharing some of your insights on branding.
Thank you.
For more great content on how to become the ideal professional for the industry that you want to work in, stay tuned here on Career Connect, only on Business Day TV. Until next time, thanks for watching.